The mess hall of the Galactic Defense Force station buzzed with the usual chatter of mixed species enjoying their evening meal. Commander Zextai, a veteran Corthian with battle scars etched across his chitinous exoskeleton, sat quietly in the corner, picking at his protein cubes while listening to the younger soldiers' conversation. "Did you hear what the humans claim about their homeworld?" Lieutenant Velmora, a fresh-faced Altarian recruit, was saying to his table companions. His crystalline features sparkled with amusement. "They say they evolved from some of the most dangerous predators on their planet." The table erupted in laughter. Sergeant Thok, a massive Gorvanian whose species was known for their physical prowess, slammed his four-fingered hand on the table. "Those soft pink creatures? Predators? They barely reach my shoulder height." "Wait, it gets better," Velmora continued, his voice rising with mirth. "They claim their ancestors hunted megafauna with nothing but pointed sticks. Apparently, they would chase their prey for days until it collapsed from exhaustion." More laughter rippled through the mess hall. Even some of the other species' soldiers had stopped their own conversations to listen. "And get this," added Corporal Rixtel, a serpentine Salith whose forked tongue flicked with each word. "They say they used to fight wars where millions of their kind would die, and they'd just keep fighting. No surrender, no retreat. Just endless waves of these fragile beings throwing themselves at each other." James Chen, one of the few human soldiers stationed at the outpost, had been trying to ignore the conversation while focusing on his meal. Beside him sat Lisa Martinez, another human who served as the station's communications officer. She placed a gentle hand on his arm as she noticed his jaw clenching. "Let it go, James," she whispered. "They'll learn eventually." "Will they?" James muttered back. "We've been part of the GDF for 5 years now, and they still think we're some kind of joke." Commander Zextai's compound eyes had been observing the interaction. The old Corthian had seen enough battles to recognize the quiet intensity in the human soldier's posture, something the younger aliens completely missed. Lieutenant Velmora wasn't finished. "The best part is they claim they tamed wolves, and turned them into companions, as if any sane species would voluntarily live alongside apex predators." "Persistence hunting," Thok guffawed. "Imagine being so weak that your only hunting strategy is to be mildly annoying until your prey gives up." The laughter grew louder, and James finally stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. The mess hall gradually fell silent as all eyes turned to him. "You want to know about persistence hunting?" James asked, his voice calm but carrying an edge that made several aliens instinctively lean back. "It's not about being weak. It's about being relentless. It's about never giving up no matter how hopeless things look." Lisa stood beside him, her hand moving to rest on her sidearm, not threateningly, but with the unconscious habit of a soldier. "Our ancestors didn't just hunt with sticks," she added quietly. "They hunted creatures 10 times their size because they had to survive. Because giving up meant extinction." "Fairy tales," Velmora scoffed, though his laughter had died. "Evolutionary impossibilities." That's when Commander Zextai finally spoke up, his voice cutting through the tension like a vibroblade. "Sit down, Lieutenant." The authority in the old commander's voice was absolute. Velmora immediately complied, confusion evident on his crystalline features. Zextai stood slowly, his scarred exoskeleton clicking as he moved. Every soldier in the mess hall knew his reputation. He'd survived 3 major conflicts and was one of the most decorated officers in the GDF. 23 years ago, Zextai began, his voice carrying across the silent mess hall. "I fought in the Proxima campaign, outnumbered 15-1 by the hegemony forces. We were trapped in the Kepler Valley for 6 days with no supplies, no reinforcements, and no hope." He walked closer to the center of the room, his eyes fixed on the younger soldiers. "My unit was mostly Corthians and Gorvani, species bred for war with natural armor and strength. We were ready to surrender with honor when our ammunition ran out." His gaze fell on James and Lisa. But there were 12 humans in that valley with us. The mess hall was so quiet that the hum of the station's life support system seemed deafening. Those 12 humans looked at a hopeless situation and said no. They stripped parts from our damaged equipment to make improvised weapons. They went 3 days without sleep, rotating between treating our wounded and planning impossible raids on enemy positions. Zextai's voice grew softer, but somehow more intense. On the 4th day, when the rest of us could barely stand, those humans were still moving, still fighting, still refusing to give up. They didn't just persist. They inspired the rest of us to persist. He turned to face Velmora directly. By the 6th day, we weren't just surviving. We were winning. The humans had turned a massacre into a victory through nothing but their inability to accept defeat. The young lieutenant's crystalline features had lost their amused glow. The rescue teams found us holding the entire valley, Zextai continued. 200 enemy prisoners secured supply lines and every human still standing guard despite wounds that would have killed most of us. He looked around the mess hall, meeting each soldier's gaze. So when humans tell you they hunted megafauna, with pointed sticks, believe them. When they tell you they tamed wolves, believe them. When they tell you they fought wars where millions died but they never stopped fighting, believe every word. The commander's attention returned to James and Lisa, and for the first time, something that might have been a smile crossed his alien features. Because I've seen what happens when humans decide something is worth fighting for, and I've never seen them lose. The mess hall remained silent for a long moment before the younger soldiers began to disperse, their laughter replaced by thoughtful contemplation. James and Lisa nodded respectfully to Commander Zextai before heading toward the exit. As they reached the door, they heard Velmora's voice behind them, much quieter now. Commander, what happened to those 12 humans from the Kepler Valley? Zextai's response followed them into the corridor. 3 of them are still serving, 2 got promoted to admiral, and the rest? They retired to start families and teach their children that giving up is never an option. James smiled as the mess hall door closed behind them. Sometimes, Lisa thought, the best way to prove a myth was simply to live it.